My ex-wife lost her memory in the crash, and when she opened her eyes in that hospital bed, the first word out of her mouth was husband. Reaching for my hand like the divorce papers we both signed 16 months ago never existed. She remembers everything. Our wedding. The cabin we were building by the lake. The way I take my coffee. Everything. Except that we're divorced. The doctors called it retrograde amnesia from the crash. They told me not to correct her. Not while her brain was still healing. But how do you look at the woman who once shaved her head to sit beside your hospital bed? The woman you pushed away because you loved her too much to let her drown with you, and tell her that the marriage she thinks she woke up to has been over for more than a year. She thinks I'm still her husband. She thinks we're still in love. And God help me, standing in that room, I couldn't bring myself to say the words that would break her heart twice. So I said nothing. But her sister knows the truth. Her sister was there for every tear I caused. And she's already promised that the moment my ex-wife is strong enough to stand, she'll tell her exactly what I did. So what happens when the woman I never stopped loving remembers the one thing I prayed she'd forget forever? That I'm the man who let her go. Let me take you back to the night it started. Because to understand why I couldn't say those words, you have to understand the phone call that broke me at 2 a.m. It was raining. Not gentle rain. The kind that hammers the windows like it's trying to get in. I was awake, because I'm always awake at 2 a.m. these days. 16 months of sleeping alone teaches your body to stop trusting the night. My phone lit up on the nightstand, a number I didn't know, and something in my chest went cold before I even answered. The way you feel a storm coming before the first drop falls. Is this Daniel Cho? Yes. Sir, we have you listed as the emergency contact for May Ren. And the whole world went quiet. Emergency contact. I never changed it. 16 months divorced, and I never took my name off the one line that said, if she's dying, call this man. I told myself I forgot. I told myself a lot of things. She's been in an accident, the voice said. You need to come now. I don't remember getting dressed. I don't remember the stairs, or the car, or the rain slamming the windshield so hard the wipers gave up. I just remember gripping the wheel and whispering the same word over and over, like a prayer I'd forgotten how to say. Please, please, please. You want to know what goes through a man's mind when the woman he let go is bleeding somewhere in the dark? Everything. Every single thing you never got to fix. The hospital doors hissed open and the light hit me like a slap. That cold white hospital light that smells like bleach and fear. My shoes squeaked on the floor. A nurse said my name. I heard coastal road and guardrail, and the car rolled, and my legs almost went out from under me. Rolled. Her little car, the one I used to tease her about, rolled off the wet road in the rain. How bad? I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. The doctor came out. Young, tired eyes. Blood on his glove that he was still peeling off. She's alive, he said. And I grabbed the wall because the relief hit harder than the fear had. But she took a serious blow to the head. There's swelling. We won't know the full picture until she wakes up. If she wakes up, he didn't say it. He didn't have to. Doctors have a way of leaving the worst word hanging in the air, where you can still hear it. So I sat. In a plastic chair that was too small, under a clock that ticked too loud, in a hallway that smelled like every bad memory I owned. Because I'd been in a hospital before. I'd been the one in the bed. And she'd been the one in this chair. Funny how life turns the table on you. Let me tell you about that, quickly. Because it matters. 2 years ago, it was me. I was the one dying by inches. I got sick. The kind of sick with a long name and a longer treatment, and a bill so big it could swallow a house. And May? She didn't blink. She shaved her head the week my hair started falling out. Just walked into the bathroom, handed me the clippers and said, "We match now." She slept in chairs like this one. She worked double shifts as a nurse and came home smelling like other people's medicine to take care of mine. She held the bucket when I was sick. She held my hand when I was scared. She held me together when I was falling apart. That's the woman in that hospital bed. That's who she was for me. And do you want to know how I repaid her? I let her go, but I'll get to that, because right then, a nurse touched my shoulder and said the 4 words that stopped my heart. She's waking up now. I stood so fast the chair skidded across the floor. My hands were shaking. 16 months of things I never said. 16 months of regret. all rushing up my throat at once. I walked into that room, not knowing what I'd find. A stranger? A woman who'd look at me with the cold distance we'd both learned to fake? I was not ready for what actually happened. She was pale. So pale. There was a bandage wrapped around her head and a cut on her cheek and tubes running into her arm, and she looked so small in that big white bed. My strong, fearless May. Small. Her eyes fluttered, opened, found me, and she smiled. Not a polite smile. Not the careful, guarded smile of a woman looking at her ex-husband. She smiled the way she used to smile at me, across a pillow on a Sunday morning. Warm, whole, home. You came, she whispered. 2 words. And they cracked me right down the middle, because they were the exact same 2 words I'd thought about her the entire drive over. Of course I came, I said. My voice broke on the second word. She lifted her hand, slow, heavy with the weight of the IV, and reached for mine. And without thinking, without breathing, I gave it to her. And her fingers curled around my palm like they'd never let go. Like they'd never let go. Then her eyebrows pulled together. She looked at my hand in hers, confused. She turned it over, ran her thumb across the base of my finger. "Where's your ring?" she asked. And the floor dropped out of the world. "Your wedding ring," she said again, her voice small and worried. "Danny, where is it? Did you lose it? You always take it off when you wash the car. I told you you'd lose it one day." I couldn't speak. I could not make a single sound. Because she wasn't playing a game. She wasn't testing me. She was looking up at me with total, trusting love. The love of a wife for her husband. And asking why her husband wasn't wearing his ring. My mouth was dry as sand. "Come here," she said. And she tugged my hand toward her cheek, and pressed my palm against her face, and closed her eyes. And a tear slid down and ran over my fingers. Warm. "I had the worst dream," she whispered. "I dreamed we didn't make it. I dreamed you left. Isn't that awful?" It felt so real. The room was spinning. My heart was a fist punching to get out of my chest. She dreamed I left. Except it wasn't a dream. It was the truest thing in both our lives. I did leave. 16 months ago, I signed the papers and I walked out. And I let her believe I didn't want her anymore. And it was the biggest lie I ever told. And now she was lying in a hospital bed, thanking God it was only a nightmare. "It's okay," I heard myself say. "It's okay. I'm here." And those 3 words, that was the moment I stepped off the edge. Because I didn't correct her. God forgive me. I didn't correct her. A nurse saw my face and quietly asked me to step outside. In the hallway, the neurologist was waiting. Older woman, kind eyes, a folder in her hands. She'd already seen it. She already knew. "Mr. Cho," she said gently, "your wife is experiencing what we call retrograde amnesia. It's not uncommon after a trauma like this. The brain protects itself. It lets go of the most recent memories first, the newest, the rawest, while older, deeper memories stay intact." "How recent?" I said. "How much is gone?" She looked at her folder. "Based on what she's told us so far, roughly the last year and a half. Maybe a little more. A year and a half. Everything. The divorce, the papers, the night it all fell apart, the 16 months of silence between us. All of it. Gone. Wiped clean, like the tide erasing footprints from sand. In her mind, she went to sleep as my wife, and she woke up still my wife. Will it come back? I asked. It might, the doctor said. In pieces, in flashes, or all at once, triggered by something. A smell, a place, a photograph. Or, she paused, it might not come back at all. There's no way to know. The brain keeps its own secrets. I nodded like I understood. I didn't understand anything. And then she said the thing that sealed my fate. Mr. Cho, this part is important. In these early days, her brain is fragile. Fighting her memories, forcing hard truths on her, contradicting what she believes, can cause real setbacks. Stress, confusion, even physical decline. Whatever she remembers, whatever she believes right now, let her hold it. Let the truth come back on its own, gently, when she's strong enough. Don't force it. Do you understand? Don't force it. Don't correct her. Let her believe. The doctor was giving me a medical instruction, but standing there in that cold hallway, I heard something else. I heard permission. Permission to have back, even for a little while, the one thing I thought I'd lost forever. I should have felt sick, and part of me did. But another part of me, a part I'm ashamed of, felt something warm and terrible unfold in my chest. She thought I was still her husband, and I didn't want to tell her I wasn't. I understand, I told the doctor. I understood exactly what I was choosing. I walked back toward the room. Through the little window in the door, I could see her, awake now, looking around for me. And when she saw me through the glass, her whole face lit up like I was the best thing she'd seen all day. Like coming back to her was the most natural thing in the world. And I thought, I can do this. Just for a few days. Just until she's stronger. I can be her husband again. Just for a little while. And no one gets hurt. I was a fool. Because I didn't hear the footsteps coming up behind me. I didn't hear the sharp click of heels on the hospital floor. Until they stopped. Right at my shoulder. And a voice I knew all too well. Cut through the air like a blade. What are you doing here? I turned around. Lena. May's little sister. Same dark eyes as May. But where May's were warm, Lena's were burning. She stood there in a wet raincoat. Hair stuck to her face. Keys still clutched in her fist. Like she'd run every red light to get here. And she was looking at me the way you look at something you scraped off your shoe. Because Lena knew. Lena knew everything. She was the one who held her sister those 16 months. She was the one who picked up the phone at 3 a.m. when May couldn't stop crying. She was the one who watched her big sister, the strongest woman either of us knew, fold up like paper because the man she gave everything to walked away the moment he got better. That's what Lena saw. That's all she ever saw. She never knew the truth of why. She only saw the leaving. I'm her emergency contact, I said quietly. You're her nothing, Lena hissed, stepping close so the nurses wouldn't hear. You lost the right to be anything to her when you signed those papers, so you can turn around and walk right back out that door before she stopped. She'd looked past me, through the window, and she'd seen it. Seen May's face. Seen the way my sister-in-law was smiling at the door, waiting for her husband to come back. Lena's face changed. The anger drained out and something colder took its place. Understanding. Horror. She doesn't know, Lena whispered. Does she? It wasn't a question. The crash. Her head. She doesn't remember. Lena. She doesn't remember that you left her. Lena's voice was shaking now. And you. She looked at me, and I watched her put it all together. Watched her see the guilt written all over my face. You're going to let her not know. You're going to stand there and let her think you're still. The doctor said not to upset her. I said fast. Too fast. And I hated how it sounded. Like an excuse. Like a coward hiding behind a white coat. Her brain is healing. She said don't force it. She said, don't you dare. Lena breathed. Don't you dare hide behind a doctor. I know you, Daniel. I know exactly what you're doing. You're not protecting her. You're stealing. A tear ran down her cheek, angry and hot. You broke my sister once. I watched it. I held what was left of her, and I swear to God, I will not watch you do it again. I didn't have an answer. What could I say? That she was wrong? She wasn't wrong. That's the worst part. From where Lena stood, she was completely, perfectly right. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and pulled herself up straight, and when she spoke again, her voice was quiet and certain. And somehow that was so much worse than the shouting. Here's what's going to happen, she said. You get your little fantasy. For now. Because I won't be the one to shock her while she's got tubes in her arm. I'm not a monster. Not like you. She took a breath. But the day she's strong enough to stand on her own 2 feet, the day the doctors say she can take it, she leaned in, close enough that I could see my own guilty reflection in her wet eyes. I'm going to tell her everything. Every paper you signed, every day you ignored her calls. The whole truth. And she is going to look at you. Finally see you for what you really are. And this time, when she throws you out of her life, she'll remember exactly why. She stepped back. Enjoy your borrowed time, Daniel. And she walked past me into the room, plastering a smile on her face for her sister, leaving me standing alone in that cold white hallway, with my heart pounding, and the whole terrible weight of what I'd just agreed to, settling onto my shoulders. Because now there was a clock. Somewhere inside May's healing head, The truth was waiting to wake up. And even if it never did, even if the crash buried it forever, Lena was standing guard, counting the days until my wife could stand, so she could hand her the one memory I'd give anything to keep buried. I had days, maybe weeks. To do what? I didn't even know yet. To say goodbye? To finally explain? To be her husband one last time before I lost her all over again? I looked through that little window at the woman I never stopped loving, laughing now at something her sister said. Alive, alive, reaching out her hand toward the empty chair beside her bed, the chair where a husband was supposed to sit. And I made a choice that would either save me or destroy me. I opened the door. I walked in. I sat down in that chair, and I took my wife's hand. God help me. I took her hand. I took her hand, and for the first time in 16 months, my wife smiled at me like I'd never let her go. That should have felt like heaven. It felt like standing on ice, hearing it crack. The days in the hospital blurred together after that. I learned her chart better than the nurses. I learned when the pain medicine wore off, when the headaches came, which nurse was gentle with the needles and which one wasn't. I slept in that plastic chair every night, and every morning she'd wake up and find me there, and every morning her face would do that thing, that soft, sleepy, there he is thing. And it broke my heart clean in half every single time. Because she wasn't performing. She wasn't grateful in the careful way a stranger is grateful. She loved me, fully, freely, the way she had before everything went wrong. And I let her. You look terrible, she told me one afternoon, reaching up to touch the dark circles under my eyes. Have you been sleeping in that chair this whole time? I sleep fine, I lied. Liar, she smiled. You always say that. You've never slept fine a day in your life. Remember our honeymoon? You were up before the sun every morning, sketching that ridiculous cabin. And there it was. The cabin. She said it so easily, like it still existed, like it was still ours. You remember the cabin? I said carefully. How could I forget the cabin? She laughed, and even weak and bruised, that laugh was the best sound in the world. You drew it 100 times. The big window facing the lake. The porch where we'd drink coffee. You promised me we'd finish building it. You promised, Danny. Something twisted in my chest so hard I had to look away. The cabin was real. It was still standing, half-built, out by the lake. Walls up, roof unfinished. Exactly the way we'd left it the week I got my diagnosis. We'd stopped building it because we ran out of time and money and strength all at once. I hadn't been back. I couldn't. Some places hold too much of who you used to be. We'll finish it, I heard myself say. Her eyes lit up. You mean it? I mean it, I said. And the terrible thing is, in that moment, I did. That's how the lie works. You know, it doesn't feel like lying. It feels like remembering. It feels like coming home. The day they discharged her, the neurologist pulled me aside one more time. She's healing well physically, she said, but she needs rest. Low stress, familiar surroundings. Her memory will find its own way back, or it won't. Keep her calm, keep her comfortable. And Mr. Cho, she gave me a look I couldn't quite read. Be careful, with all of it. Familiar surroundings, that was the problem. Because the home May remembered, our old apartment, the one with the yellow kitchen and the scratch on the door where we'd measured nothing because we never had kids to measure, that home was gone. I'd given it up when I left. I lived somewhere else now, a smaller place, a place she'd never seen. I had one night to fix that. So I did something insane. I drove to my empty apartment and I stayed up until 4 a.m., turning it into a home that never existed. I hung the photographs I'd hidden in a box in the closet. Our wedding, our trips, her laughing with cake on her face. I put her favorite blue mug on the left side of the cupboard, where she always kept it. I bought the tea she liked. I put a book on the nightstand on her side of the bed. Because we still had sides, I'd never once slept on hers. And I made everything look like a marriage that was still breathing. I stood back and looked at it, exhausted, hands shaking, and I thought, what kind of man builds a fake life for a woman who trusts him completely? The answer scared me. A desperate one. A selfish one. A man who missed his wife so badly he'd rather live in a beautiful lie than an honest, empty truth. When I brought her home the next day, she stood in the doorway and looked around at my staged little apartment, a place she'd genuinely never set foot in, and my heart stopped, waiting. "It's different," she said slowly, ice water in my veins. "We moved," I said. "While you were, I love it," she breathed. She walked in, running her fingers along the back of the couch, and she found the blue mug in the cupboard on the first try. And she found the photographs and pressed her hand to the one of our wedding, and she turned back to me with tears in her eyes. "You kept everything," she whispered. "Every picture." "I kept everything," I said. And that, at least, wasn't a lie. I really had kept everything. In a box. In the dark. For 16 months. The days that followed were the strangest, sweetest, most painful days of my life. I became her nurse, the way she'd once been mine. I made her tea and carried it to her in bed. I helped her to the bathroom when she was dizzy, one arm around her waist, her weight against my chest. I learned to change the bandage on her head without hurting her. I sat on the edge of the tub and washed her hair over the sink because she couldn't lift her arms high enough yet, and I felt her lean back into my hands and sigh, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from crying. Do you understand what was happening to me? I was getting to be her husband again. And every gentle thing I did for her, every cup of tea, every careful step to the bathroom, every night I stayed awake listening to her breathe. It was me paying back a debt I never got to pay. She took care of me when I was dying, and now, finally, God was letting me take care of her. Except she didn't know it was a debt. She thought it was just love. And it was. That's what killed me. It was. One night, she couldn't sleep. The headaches were bad. I sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing slow circles on her back the way she used to like. And out of the dark, she said something that stopped my hand cold. "Danny, can I tell you something scary?" "Always. Sometimes, I get these flashes." Her voice was small. "In my dreams, or when I'm almost asleep, I see things I don't understand." She swallowed. "A room I don't know. White walls. A pen in my hand. And this awful feeling. Like my chest is caving in. Like I'm signing away my whole heart." She turned to look at me in the dark. "What do you think it means?" I couldn't breathe. She was seeing the lawyer's office. The day we signed. Her brain was reaching for it, clawing back toward the truth, through the fog, and it was starting with the worst day of both our lives. "I don't know," I whispered. It was the coward's answer, but it was all I had. "It scared me," she said. "In the dream, I looked up, and you were across the table, and you looked so sad." "Why would I dream that you looked sad?" She reached for my hand. "We're happy, aren't we, Danny? We've always been happy." And I looked into the eyes of the woman I loved more than my own life, and I lied to her again, and this time it tasted like blood. "We've always been happy," I said. She smiled and closed her eyes and drifted off holding my hand, and I sat awake in the dark for hours, listening to the clock. Because now I knew. The truth wasn't gone. It was in there. It was rising, slow, like water filling a boat. And one day, it would reach the top. The next morning, Lena came. She came every few days, to check on her sister, and to remind me, with one cold look over May's shoulder, that my time was running out. She'd sit and laugh with May, and braid her hair, and then she'd catch me in the kitchen, and the smile would vanish off her face, like it was never there. "She's walking better," Lena said quietly, drying a dish she didn't need to dry. "Almost steady on her own now." "I noticed," I said. "You know what that means." It wasn't a question. "Lena, please." I lowered my voice. "Just give me a little more time. I'm going to tell her myself. I am. I need to do it right. I need to." "You need to what?" She set the dish down hard. "Get her to love you again first? So it hurts less for you when she finds out?" She shook her head, disgusted. "That's the part you don't get, Daniel. This was never about you getting to say goodbye. You already had your goodbye. You chose it." That word, chose, hit me like it always did. Because Lena thought I chose to leave the way you choose to quit something hard. She didn't know the truth. She didn't know what that choice actually cost me. She'd never heard the real story. And standing in that kitchen, something in me finally broke loose. I was so tired of being hated for the one thing I did out of love. "You want to know why I left?" I said. my voice shaking. You really want to know? Lena crossed her arms. Enlighten me. When I got better, I said. When the treatment finally worked and they told me I was going to live. Do you know what I saw when I looked at your sister? My throat was closing up. I saw what it cost her. I saw a woman who'd sold her car, who'd emptied her savings, who'd worked herself to bone taking care of me. She shaved her head, Lena. She gave me 2 years of her life and every dollar she had, and she was so tired she couldn't stand up straight anymore. And I looked at her, and I thought, my voice cracked. I thought, I already took everything from her. If I stay, I'll take the rest. Her future, her chance at a family. A life that isn't just changing bandages and paying my bills. I thought if I really loved her, I'd let her go be free. I thought I was saving her. The kitchen was dead silent. Lena was staring at me, and something in her face had shifted. A flicker of doubt, a first small crack in 16 months of certainty. I didn't leave because I stopped loving her, I said, barely able to get the words out. I left because I loved her so much, I convinced myself she'd be better off without me. And I was wrong. God, I was so wrong. It was the worst mistake of my whole life, and I have paid for it every single day since. For a long moment, Lena didn't say anything. Then, quietly, she never wanted to be saved, Daniel. Her voice wasn't angry now. It was sad, almost gentle. She wanted to be chosen. There's a difference, and you never gave her the chance to choose. I had no answer for that, because she was right. Does she know? Lena asked. The version of her in that bedroom right now. Does she know how sick you were? Does she remember the cancer? And that stopped me cold, because I hadn't thought about it. Not really. The 18 months she'd lost, that was the divorce, the silence, the leaving. But the illness had started before that. So she remembered some of it. She remembered me getting sick. But did she remember me getting better? Did she know I was safe now? Or in her mind, was I still? The bedroom door opened. May stood there, one hand on the frame, steady on her feet for the first time since the crash. She'd heard voices, and she was looking at me with an expression I hadn't seen since the hospital. Pale, frightened, her eyes wide and glassy. Danny, she whispered, how long have you been better? The kitchen went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator hum. What? I said. Your treatment. Her voice was trembling. I woke up and I couldn't remember if, are you okay? Are you still sick? Tears were spilling down her face now, and she crossed the room and grabbed my shirt in her fists, like she was checking I was solid, checking I was real, checking I was alive. I keep losing track of things. I can't remember. Just tell me you're okay. Please, please tell me you're not still dying. I can't lose you, Danny. I can't. And I wrapped my arms around my wife, while she shook and sobbed into my chest, terrified of losing me to a disease I'd already beaten, while the truth she was really about to lose me to sat quietly in the next room, waiting. Over her shoulder, Lena stood frozen by the sink, and for the first time in 16 months, she wasn't looking at me like I was a monster. She was looking at me like she finally understood. She was afraid I was still dying. And that was the moment I knew I couldn't do this anymore. Because here's the thing about a lie. Even a kind one. Even a lie you tell to protect someone. It doesn't just sit still. It grows. It reaches into places you never meant it to go. I'd started this to keep her from being hurt. And now she was standing in my kitchen, sobbing, terrified of losing me to a cancer I'd already beaten. Carrying a fear that wasn't even real anymore. All because I'd let her live in a world made of half-truths. I held her until she stopped shaking. I smoothed her hair and I said, I'm okay. I promise you, the treatment worked. I'm better. I'm not going anywhere. And that part at least was true. Truer than she knew. I wasn't going anywhere. Not this time. But I looked over her shoulder at Lena, and Lena looked back at me, and something passed between us in that silent kitchen. She gave me the smallest nod, and I understood what it meant. It's time. Tell her. The real way. Before her own head does it for you. That night, after May fell asleep, I didn't sleep at all. I sat at the kitchen table, and I looked at that box. The box I'd hidden in the closet for 16 months. And I took out the one thing I'd never been able to throw away. The divorce papers. Both copies. Signed. And underneath them, folded and soft from being opened and closed 100 times. The drawings, the cabin, every window, every beam, the porch facing the lake, the life we never got to build. I made a decision. If I was going to give her back the truth, I wasn't going to do it in a kitchen, under fluorescent light, with fear in the air. I was going to do it in the one place that still held the best of who we were. I was going to take her to the cabin. The drive out was quiet. It was early morning, the sky just turning gold, mist still hanging low over the water. May sat beside me with the window down, the wind in her hair, and she was smiling like a kid, and I kept glancing at her thinking, remember this. Whatever happens after today, remember her exactly like this. We came around the last bend, and the cabin appeared through the trees, and she gasped. It was still standing, weathered, unfinished, the roof half open to the sky, wildflowers grown up around the porch steps. But it was ours. Every board of it was ours. It's still here, she whispered, climbing out before the car even stopped. Danny, it's still here. She walked up to it and touched the door frame, the same way she'd touched my hand in the hospital, like she couldn't believe it was real. And I stood there in the tall grass, watching the woman I loved walk through the bones of the home we'd dreamed of, and I felt my heart break and heal at the same time. We could still finish it, she said, turning to me, her eyes shining. Couldn't we? We could. May. My voice stopped her. I have to tell you something, and it's going to be the hardest thing I've ever said. She went still. The wind moved through the trees. Somewhere out on the lake, a bird called, "Okay," she said softly, and she came and sat beside me on the porch step, the way she'd sat beside me 1,000 times before. Tell me. So I did. I told her everything. I told her about the day I got better, how instead of joy, I felt terror. Terror that I'd already taken too much from her. I told her how I looked at everything she'd sacrificed. The car, the savings, her health, her hair, 2 whole years of her life. And how I decided, all on my own, without asking her, without giving her a say, that she'd be better off free of me. I told her about the lawyer's office, the white room, the pen, the papers we both signed. Her, because she was so exhausted and heartbroken, she thought I really wanted out. Me, because I thought I was setting her free. I told her about the 16 months of silence. How I ignored her calls not because I didn't want to hear her voice, but because I wanted to hear it so badly I knew if I picked up even once, I'd never be able to keep pretending I'd stopped loving her. And then I told her the hardest part. "Machen," I said, and my voice was shaking so hard I could barely get it out. "The crash, your accident. When you woke up, you'd forgotten all of it. The divorce, the silence, all of it. You woke up and you thought I was still your husband." Tears were running down my face now, and I didn't wipe them away. And I should have told you the truth right there. But I didn't. Because I'm a selfish, broken man who missed his wife so much that when she looked at me with love again, I couldn't bear to lose it. So I let you believe it. I let you love me. And I have never done anything more wrong or more cowardly in my whole life. We're not married, May. We haven't been for 16 months. I let you go. I'm the one who let you go. And then I stopped. Because there was nothing left. It was all out in the open, lying there in the grass between us, ugly and true. I couldn't look at her. I stared at my own hands, and I waited for the sound of her standing up, walking away. I waited to lose her all over again, but this time knowing it was completely, entirely my fault. For a long time she didn't say anything, and then, quietly, she started to cry. But when I finally forced myself to look at her face wasn't angry. It was crumpled, and wet, and full of a grief so deep it took my breath away. And she was looking at me like her heart was breaking. Not because of me. For me. "I remember," she whispered. My whole body went cold. "What? It's coming back. Right now. All of it." She pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. "The office. The pen. Your face across the table. I remember signing it and thinking, why isn't he fighting for me? Why is he letting this happen?" She looked at me, tears streaming. "I thought you didn't want me anymore, Danny. For 16 months, I thought you looked at me and saw someone you were done with." "Never," I choked. "Not for 1 second. Not one." "I know," she cried. "I know that now. Because you just told me. You just told me the truth you could have kept hidden forever. She grabbed my face in both her hands, the way I'd held hers in that hospital bed. You could have said nothing. My memory might never have come all the way back. You could have kept me, and instead you brought me here, and you handed me the one thing that could make me walk away from you. Why? Because you deserved the truth, I said. Even if the truth costs me you. You spent 2 years giving me everything. The least I could do was stop taking from you, even if what I was taking was you. And that's when she did the thing that I will remember until the day I die. She laughed. A wet, broken, beautiful laugh, and she pressed her forehead against mine, and she said, "You idiot. May, you beautiful, stubborn idiot." She was crying and laughing at the same time. You never had to save me. I didn't want to be saved. I wanted to be chosen. I would have chosen you sick. I would have chosen you broke. I would have chosen you with nothing, with debt, with 100 more years of hospital chairs, because that's what love is, Danny. It doesn't run when things get expensive. It stays. She wiped my tears with her thumbs. The divorce didn't break my heart. You disappearing broke my heart. You decided all by yourself that I'd be happier without you, and that was the only thing you ever did that I couldn't forgive. I closed my eyes. And now, she whispered, you just did the opposite. You had every reason to keep the lie, and you chose the truth. You chose me, the real me, the one who gets to decide for herself. She pulled back so I could see her face. So let me decide, right here, knowing everything, remembering all of it. She took both my hands in hers. I don't want the marriage we lost, Danny. I don't want to go back and pretend the last 2 years didn't happen. I want the marriage we were too scared to fight for. I want the one where you don't get to decide what's good for me all by yourself. I want the one where we're honest, even when it's terrifying. Her voice cracked. I choose you, not because I forgot, because I remember, and I'm still here. I couldn't speak. I just pulled her into my arms and held her while we both cried. Out there on the porch of our unfinished house, with the sun climbing over the lake, and the whole world smelling like morning and second chances. We heard a sound behind us. Lena. She'd followed us. She was standing at the edge of the trees, and she'd heard everything, and her face was wet with tears. She walked over slowly, and she looked at me, really looked at me, and 16 months of hatred just dissolved. I didn't know, she said, her voice breaking. All this time, I thought you just left her because it got hard. I never knew you left because you loved her too much to stay. She wiped her face. I'm sorry, Daniel. I spent so long hating you for the wrong story. And May reached out and pulled her little sister down onto the porch step with us. And the three of us sat there in the tall grass and the gold light, holding each other, letting go of a 1.5 years of pain all at once. We finished the cabin that summer. I mean it. We actually built it, board by board, the two of us, with Lena bringing sandwiches and complaining about splinters. May got stronger every week. Her memory came back in full, every good day and every bad one, and she chose me on all of them. The big window went in, facing the lake, just like the drawing. The porch got finished, the one where we drink our coffee now, every single morning. Her on the left, me on the right, my ring back on my finger where it belongs. And on the first night the house was truly ours. We lit a fire in the fireplace we'd built with our own hands. I went and got the box, and I took out the divorce papers, both copies, the ones I'd carried like a wound for 16 months, and I handed them to her. She looked at them, then she looked at me, and together, both our hands on the same piece of paper, we fed them to the fire. We watched 16 months of fear and pride and silence curl up and turn to ash and float up the chimney into the night. And the fire that warmed our first real home was fueled by the very thing that once tore us apart. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I kissed the top of her head. And outside, the lake was still, and the stars were out, and for the first time in 2 years, I wasn't awake at 2 a.m. because I was afraid. I was awake because I didn't want to miss a single second of the life I almost threw away. So let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with it, wherever you are right now. How many people have you pushed away, not because you stopped loving them, but because you loved them so much you convinced yourself they'd be better off without you? How many times have you decided, all on your own, what someone else deserved, and never gave them the chance to choose for themselves. Because here's what it took me 2 years and one terrible accident to learn. Love isn't about being strong enough to carry everything alone. Real love is brave enough to let someone stay. It's brave enough to be honest, even when the truth might cost you everything. The bravest thing you will ever do is not walk away to protect someone. It's stand still, open your hands, show them exactly who you are, scars and all, and let them choose you anyway. Don't wait for a crash to say the thing you're afraid to say. Don't let pride convince you that leaving is love. If there's someone you let go because you thought you weren't enough, call them. Tell them the truth. Give them the chance to choose, because the people who really love you don't want the perfect version of you. They want the real one. And you are so much more worthy of being chosen than the fear in your head will ever let you believe. You are not too broken to be loved. You are not too much. You never were. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of someone, if it made you feel even a little less alone tonight, do me a favor. Tap that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. Because we tell these stories for you, for the ones who still believe that love, real love, is always worth fighting for. Thank you for watching. Now go call the person you've been thinking about this whole time. They're waiting.